Hi everyone, my name is Leah Kopke and I'm a 3D motion design freelancer. And I was scammed. When I think of all the incredible freelancers and artists I've met over the past couple years doing this, it makes me want to change this so that it doesn't happen to anyone else. We're a really close-knit community. I've met so many incredible freelancers at networking events and on LinkedIn, even through having this YouTube channel. And I feel so inspired by everyone. Something that I've learned is that we're an incredibly close-knit community and word gets around really fast in our community, which actually gives us an advantage. It gives us a way to put scammers out of business. Actually, a lot of time and investment goes into scamming someone. And time is money. If scammers aren't making money very easily doing their scams, they're going to eventually give up. So the way to put scammers out of business is by sharing our stories with one another. I heard of other freelancers talking about scams going around on LinkedIn and other places like that, and that was how I was able to recognize the scam. Even though I was able to prevent my money from falling into the hands of the scammer, I wasted a lot of my time on a fake project before I realized what was happening. I also invested my own money into assets for doing this project for the scammer, which now I found out is a completely fake project, and that the scammer wasn't even who they said they were. I'd also like to remove some of the shame surrounding being scammed, because shame is actually what prevents us from stopping scammers. If we talk about scams and remove the shame around it, first of all, you shouldn't feel ashamed. You did nothing wrong. It's not your fault. And the world should be a whole lot kinder than it is. Because if we talk about what we went through, if we talk about how it happened and the red flags, then we'll be able to prevent it from happening to someone else as easily, because they'll know what to look out for and they'll know how to protect their business. So if you've ever been scammed, if you've ever gone through that horrible thing, or if you have any tips on how to prevent scams at all, please leave it in the comments below and let us know what happened or what you think could help people protect themselves from scams within this business. Let's have a conversation about it. And if you know someone who's a freelancer or an artist or even thinking of freelancing, you should send them this video. And I'm not talking about scams to scare you out of starting your own business or freelancing. Honestly, starting my own business was the most empowering, incredible thing that I've done. So rewarding. All the people that I've met is incredible. And I wouldn't change my mind. Even if I lost more money, I would keep freelancing. Now, with that said, let's just prevent that from happening and have a conversation. So I'm going to tell you my story so we can do that. So grab yourself a nice cup of tea and I'll tell you what happened. For the purposes of my story, I'm going to change everyone's name in it because I was not the only person who was scammed in this story. There were actually a few people scammed in this story, and I'm going to change everyone's names in order to respect their privacy. So you won't be able to look these people up that I'm talking about online. You won't know who they are. I'm not going to give you their real names. And I'm also not even going to give the real organization that I thought I was working for, because it wouldn't be right. So just keep that in mind. So it all started off with an email. I got an email from Jim, and Jim worked at an organization. Whenever I receive an email from someone about a potential freelance project, I'll usually look them up online. That is the first and easiest thing you can do to protect yourself from a scam, as well as to learn about the organization you're going to work for. You need to know about their branding, how they operate. And it's really easy to look up an organization online and get familiar with it. And it'll help you do a better job as a freelancer for your client. And it'll also help you protect your business before a project gets started. Jim sent me an email. He looked at my portfolio. He took screenshots of sections of my portfolio in order to give me a reference on what style he wanted renders to be done in. He wanted 10 illustrations, renders of things relating to safety. So these renders were for safety awareness. And I've done safety awareness renders before for clients, so that didn't seem unusual. I've done that kind of project before in the past, and I have been paid for it. And in the past, it wasn't a scammer asking me to do it. In this case, I was being scammed, but I didn't know yet. And it's also very typical for clients to take screenshots of something from your portfolio so that you know what style they want the renders in, or if you're making an animation, what kind of animation they'd like. They usually reference something from your portfolio. So this scammer was unusually good. A lot of times scammers aren't that specific. They don't have an entire design brief with specific renders they'd like. There was something that I noticed near the bottom of the email which was a red flag. So the first part of the project sounded perfectly normal. Something that I noticed at the end of that email was he wanted to send me a certified check. So that seemed weird. It seemed weird that he wanted to send me a certified check because I've been freelancing for over 2 years and I've never had a client want to pay me that way. I also have been hearing rumors in the freelance community that there is some kind of scam going around related to certified checks. So I was a little bit worried about this project, honestly, when I read that email. I was concerned. So what I did before responding back was I actually emailed my financial advisor and I asked her, have you heard of any scams going around related to certified checks? Because I've heard rumors on LinkedIn and at networking events that there's some kind of scam going around. And she said that she hadn't heard of anything specific to certified checks, but that it might be a scam if they ask for money back after sending me the check. So I kept this in mind. The scammer was pretty good at their job because it was hard for me to tell right away. Luckily, I did figure it out eventually. So Jim, I sent him an estimate, and in my estimate, I put in the terms for the project. I asked for 50% up front and the other 50% within 30 days of finishing the project, which is pretty typical for my industry and freelancing. So I had asked for that, and I also asked for him to sign the estimate saying that if the project moves forward, that he agrees to the terms within the project, and I specify the deliverables and all of that information in there. In order to protect myself, I ask for a signature. So it's just an agreement between two parties, and it's sometimes people find contracts scary, but they don't need to be. And he signed the contract estimate and agreed to it. But he did say one thing that threw me off. And now that I've been through this whole thing, I know that he had actually forged someone else's signature on that estimate, and that Jim wasn't even Jim. He was pretending to be Jim at this organization, and he wasn't actually him working at that organization. It was someone else impersonating him, and someone else that forged a signature. And that's illegal. It's very illegal to do that, what he did. I didn't realize this yet, but the red flag that I did notice was that I asked for 50% up front, and he wanted to pay me 100% up front. I have never, in the 2 years of freelancing, over 2 years of freelancing that I've done, had anyone ever want to pay me 100% up front. People like to hold on to their money as long as they can because they earn interest on it. So it was weird. It was a red flag that he wanted to pay me 100% up front. Now, is it possible that there could be a human being on this earth that is just nice and wants to support artists and pay them 100% up front? It's possible. And it's also possible this person is a scammer. And that's why it's a red flag. It's just something to keep in mind. It doesn't determine if this person is a scammer or not. That's not what a red flag does. But it gives you something that you need to look into and you need to verify. And verifying can be a little bit challenging, but I'll go into a little bit of how you can figure things out. So I thought that was a little weird that he wanted to pay me 100% up front. I also gave him a $100 discount because it was a pretty big project, take a little bit of time to do, and it was our first time working together. I gave him a little bit of a discount of $100. He sent me a check with a tracking number. Never had anyone ever send me a check with a tracking number so that I could track where it was. And not only that, it came overnight. And he was across the country. It should have taken a while to get here. I got it the first day of the project when I started working on it. It got here overnight with a tracking number that he sent me. Those are red flags. It's a red flag that I got here that quickly and that he gave me a tracking number. I've never had a client do that for me. Now, does that mean for sure this person is a scammer? No, but it means they could be. So I continued to work on this project. I was working on this project, and supposedly the check was downstairs, and he was telling me that I need to go check my mail. And I told him I'll check it in a little bit. I knew it was secure in a safe place. And I told him I'll check it in a little bit. I'm focusing on your project right now. I'm in the middle of working on this render for you. He seemed more interested in me getting this check than the project I was supposedly doing for him, which most clients will care more about the project and the work you're doing for them than if you deposit a check right away. He kept pressuring me to go get the check. He said it to me multiple times. This was the first day I was working on this project. Looking back, that makes a whole lot more sense now because now I realize that check was not his own money. He was scamming someone else. That was coming from someone else's account. But I didn't know that yet. So I was working on this project and he kept asking me to go and get this check and deposit it. So finally I thought, well, maybe he's just worried that someone's gonna steal it or something. So I got the check from my mail. I came back upstairs and went back to working. I told him that I saw the check, I have it, and that it's safe, and I'll deposit it later. Right now I'm focused on working on his project. And I don't have time to go to the bank right now because I want to work on this for him. He told me I need to go to the bank now. He said I need to go deposit that check now. He seemed more interested in me depositing that check than the project I was doing. I was sending him examples of renders and I was sending him samples for the project. and he said they looked great and just approved them all right away, really fast, almost like he didn't discuss it with a team at his organization. So that's something to keep in mind. And then the next day I was working on this project. I was continuing to work on more renders for him, and I was feeling pretty good about the work I was doing. Still thought this seemed like a little bit of an odd project just because of how it was going, but I couldn't explain. I couldn't verify that this was a scam or not. I didn't look very closely at the check initially, and I wish that I had. And you can't always tell if a check is a part of a scam very easily by looking at it. But the thing that you'd want to do, even if the bank is closed, you should look closely at that check. Look at the name on that check. Look at the organization on that check. Does it have the right name? Does it have the right organization? That's a good first thing to check. Does the signature look right? Does the signature make sense for the organization you're supposed to receive a check from? Things to check. That's not always enough to verify if the check is what you think it is, but it's a good starting point. I'd actually suggest that you go and ask a banker, can you verify if this check is a part of a scam or not? Because they'll know a lot more information and they'll be able to tell a lot better than you can, and that's okay. That's how you can verify. It's worth going over to the bank and asking someone who's an expert. And the bank will want to help you because it's a lot of work for them to avoid these scams, and it's not good for them. It's in your favor and theirs that you aren't scammed. So they're a good place to go to for support. He kept pressuring me to deposit this check, and I was working on it for the second day, sending him samples. And finally, at the end of the day, I said, okay, I'll deposit the check, because he kept being really pushy about it. So I went ahead and I deposited the check. While he was asking me to deposit this check earlier, I'd just like to say he was also asking me to tell him when I deposited it. He really wanted to know as soon as it was deposited that I had deposited it. And he got back to me and said that the project had changed and that it's been shortened from 10 renders to 5, and that he wanted a refund. And I also noticed at this point that the check was for more money than what I asked for. I gave him a discount. If you remember at the beginning of this story, I gave him a discount. And I was so pressured to deposit this check that I should have looked more closely at it and also realized that that discount wasn't included, and he paid me too much. So I had told him that I wanted to send him back the $100 because I gave him a discount. But at this point, he had also decided that the project actually was going to be half the length, so he needed 50% back, plus that $100. And I told him I'd be happy to give him a refund, but at this point, that was a red flag, because my financial advisor, if you remember, she told me that it's probably not a scam unless if they send you a certified check and then ask for money back. So at this point, I was worried that this check was going to bounce, that he's asking for a refund, and that if I send him the refund right away, I could be sending him money that I'll never see again, and the original check that I received would bounce, and I just end up losing money instead of making any money. So I was feeling pretty concerned at this point and wondering if this was a real project at all. But I also, in case if it was a real project, I felt like I had to keep working on it, because what if this was a real client? I said that I would work on it and I would get it done for them. And I want to be a good freelancer. I want to do a good job in case if this is a real client. And I wasn't sure if they were a real client at this point or not. And I wasn't really sure what to do. I looked up Jim again on the internet and I saw his organization. And this time I looked a little bit closer and I was able to find the real Jim's email. The real Jim's email did not match the email address that I was receiving messages from Jim. The emails didn't match. Now, is it possible that Jim was just using a different email account and that people have multiple email accounts? Yes, that is possible. It is also possible this person is not who they say they are. So I actually thought of a few things, and the bank was closed when I was thinking about this, so I couldn't go over there and ask a banker. I wanted to go over to the bank and ask someone to take a closer look at that check that I had deposited. And I did do that eventually, but I also found the real Jim's email, work email, on the organization's website, and I included the real work email in the email chain that was already going for this project. I said that I was just adding his work email to make it easier for us to communicate throughout the project. So I tried to keep it really professional, even though I wasn't sure if I was talking to a scammer. You should always try to keep things very professional and polite, just in general. At this point, I noticed that Jim would no longer email me. As soon as I included his work email on the email chain, if that was the real Jim, he wouldn't have minded that I was using his work email. The scammer at this point started to get a little bit sloppier because he was nervous, because I basically revealed to the person that he was impersonating him. And I have email tracking, so I could also see that the real Jim had seen this email and opened it a couple of times. I have no idea what he was thinking when he saw that whole conversation and someone pretending to be him and work at the organization he was working at. But the scammer would only talk to me through my phone at that point. And I even asked him, I check my email more often than my phone. It's easier for communication. Could you please communicate with me via email? And even though I said that a couple of times, he wouldn't. That is a red flag. If he were the real Jim, he wouldn't have minded me adding his work email to the email chain. So at this point, I was still working on the project for him, and finally I was able to go over to the bank and tell them that I was concerned. I told them that I was concerned and I wanted them to take a closer look at the check that I deposited. I told them I think it's a scam. And as soon as I said the word scam, it just seemed like everyone's ears perked up at the bank, and they wanted to help me right away, which was really nice. They were very nice that they wanted to help me right away. And I sat down in his office and he took a closer look at the check that I had deposited. And he told me that it was coming out of someone else's account. And again, I'm making up names for this so that I don't reveal the real people's identity. So I'll say this was coming out of Susie's account. So Susie had no relation at all to this organization. She didn't work there. She was just a woman being scammed. She was having money taken out of her account and she didn't know. Somehow the scammer also had her banking information and was paying me from her account. And eventually the banker told me that Susie would hopefully notice. Here's a tip for you. If you have a business, if you even don't have a business, if you just have any kind of checking account, business account, personal checking, a good way to protect yourself is just by reconciling your checking account, checking that that there's no money taken out that shouldn't be taken out. Make sure that everything in there was actually things that you had. If you see any money taken out, that it was something that you had done and not something that someone else had done. Make sure that everything looks right on your statements. Go through them, check them. Really easy way to make sure that you don't end up in the situation that this woman named Susie had ended up in. And I don't want to be taking money from Susie either. That's her money, her hard-earned money that she worked hard for. And that's disturbing that I was paid from someone else's account that was being taken advantage of. That's wrong. So that was upsetting to me. And the banker also told me that this kind of scam is really common. And he said usually they won't even have people go to the bank to deposit a check, that they'll recommend you do it at an ATM so that you don't have someone at the bank that could maybe catch on. So if someone asks you to deposit a check at an ATM, that's a huge red flag to watch out for. Banker also told me that these kinds of scams usually have a team of people working on it. He knew right away that this was a scam from looking at the check. And I gave him the entire email chain. I gave him all the information that I could. And he said that the money would be put back in Susie's account and that this was definitely a scam. And as I said, the scammer at this point seemed a little bit nervous, and he was getting sloppy, and he was getting more pushy about me sending him money. Just the way he was pressuring me, that he wanted me to send that money to him right away. And he wanted me to send it to him with a tracking number. And he was saying he wanted it to be first class. And he needed it right away. And he was more interested in that than any of my work that I had done these last days on this project. He was more interested in the money than in the project. And I thought, he thinks I'm clueless. He thinks I don't know what I'm doing. And he's talking to me like I'm stupid. So if I act like I don't know what's happening, I can get more information from him to send to the State Attorney General's office or to the bank to report this if I continue acting like I don't realize what's happening. So I did that, and I responded back to him and I said, I'm happy to send you the money right away. I want to make sure you get it as quickly as possible. And I said, where would you like me to send it to? I'm trying to get more information from him to give to the bank and to the State Attorney General's office so that he's hopefully taken to court, or they're able to freeze this account or do some kind of investigation. The bank told me that they do an investigation with just the information that I had given them, but I thought I could give them more. So I was messaging him and I asked him for an address to send the check to and for more information. He wanted me to send it to him online through PayPal or something like that. That's a red flag. That is a red flag, especially for an organization of that size. They don't usually have you sending the money through anything like PayPal. It just seemed weird. Usually they have an office that deals with that kind of thing. Or a department, I mean. I told him that I wouldn't be able to, that I just don't do business that way, and that I send him a check and that's how I do business. So that's something to remember as a freelancer, is that you actually get to choose how you're paid, or how you're a business owner. You have a little bit of control over how you're paid or how you pay other people. I told him I'd send him a check and I needed to know an address to send it to. And he gave me an address of a bank, and he told me an account number that he wanted the check to go into. And it was someone else that was scammed, I found out. So we'll call this person. I need to come up with another name because I'm not giving away any of the victims' names in this. The check was supposed to go to an account under the name of Jordan, and it was supposed to go there. I actually looked up Jordan online, her name, and I could find her Facebook page. She had no relationship at all to this organization or gym. And it just seemed really, really strange. So I went over to the bank and I gave them this information. And he said, "Oh, yes, I think Jordan's identity has been stolen." And he created an account in her name in order to use for scamming people so that the transactions wouldn't be traced back to him. He told me that he could call up that bank and let them know what was happening, and they do an investigation into this and do their best to stop this from happening. I also plan on using that information to send it over to the State Attorney General's office so that hopefully this can be stopped and taken to court. It doesn't cost you any money to do that. Maybe there's other options in other countries. I'm not as familiar, but in the United States, that's something you can do that doesn't cost you any money as a business to protect yourself. If there's some kind of scam or something illegal happens, you can report it to the State Attorney General's office. And the person who did the scam will hopefully be taken to court. So that's just something to keep in mind, and it won't cost you anything. And that's actually what I plan on doing. And when you do that, include all correspondence, whether if they're text message or email, include any information you can. If you have the check scanned, if there's a fraudulent check involved, send them that information. Send them as much information as you can because it makes it easier for them to stop the scamming from continuing. I found this disturbing because in this entire process, 3 people had been scammed. I put a lot of time into this project before I stopped working on it. And in the total amount of time that I put in, it was equivalent to $1,200 that I wasn't paid for my time. And I also bought 3D models for this project that were $95. So I lost in total from this project $1,295. And it could have been a lot worse. And even the banker was telling me how lucky I was that it wasn't worse than what it was. And he was telling me that sometimes people don't realize that the check is fraudulent and it bounces later after they've already spent the money or moved it, and then they end up with a bank account that's in the negative numbers, and then they're in debt, and it's hard for them to get out of debt. And it's a bad situation to be in, and he said it's really, really hard to set that right. So be very careful. Even if it looks like the check went through and it's not going to bounce, it could still bounce later. So in this case, it could have bounced when Susie realized that all of a sudden money's missing out of her account that shouldn't be. She goes over to the bank, tells them, they set it right, you end up having that money taken out of your account. And if you've already spent it on something, which a lot of people would possibly do, then you end up with a bank account possibly in the negative numbers, which I don't want to see that happening to you. I don't want to see that happening to you. I think what can be taken away from this experience that I've had is learn a little bit of accounting. Take a look at your bank account each week and your statements, your credit cards. Make sure that everything on there looks right. That's the first thing you can do. And there's software to help you with that. I try to keep on top of that and check it once a week. It's important to do. It'll help you catch scammers or anything weird going on. If you are suspicious of a check, ask your bank about it. Ask your banker about it. They can help you. That'll help a lot. And if someone asks you to send them money, be cautious. Look into it. Verify that someone is who they say they are as much as you can. I know it's not easy. Probably the best thing you can do is talk to a banker if you're wondering about something. Just that awareness will help. And having this conversation, because now if someone tries to scam you and do the same thing that happened to me, it will be a lot harder for them to do it because now you know. So I'm recording this at a later time because I wanted to give you an update on what actually happened when I reported this. So what had happened is I had called the state attorney general's office and let them know what had happened and asked them what would be the best form to fill out. And I could have filled out a form if I knew the name of the scammer. They said that would have been more useful. But since I don't know the name of the actual person that was scamming me, they suggested that I report it to the police station as well as the FTC. So I did report it to the police station. And so I think that is good. They're going to reach out to me again if they end up doing an investigation into it. They let me know that if I had lost more money, that it'd be more likely that they do an investigation. I didn't lose too much in this case, so I guess I'm fortunate in that way, but they're less likely to do an investigation because of it. I also filed this to the FTC and gave them as much information as I could. Something that the Attorney State General did tell me that I thought was really useful, though, is that if you're in Jordan's situation where your identity has been stolen to open up an account in your name that the scammer's using to scam other people, what you can do if you're in Jordan's situation is report it to the State Attorney General's office. They told me that they actually help you set that straight. So they're a good resource if you're in that situation. You should give them a call. They have a department specifically for helping people in that situation. And I'm happy that I filed a police report. I'm happy that I reported this to the FTC. And I'm also happy that I am sharing this story with you. So I know this episode was a little bit different, but I thought it was important to talk about. Our close-knit freelance community can protect each other. If you share a comment below of an experience you've had, you'll be helping someone. If you have any tips on how to avoid scams, please leave it in the comments below. I really appreciate you sticking around. If you like, subscribe, share this video, it'll be seen by more people and hopefully it raises awareness that the scam is going around and you'll hopefully be helping them, helping to protect them in their business. I feel very proud to be a part of this freelance community. We're all very passionate about what we do, and I've met so many incredible people through this. I really care about all of you. I really do. I feel so inspired by all of you and all the incredible people that I've met through freelancing, and I really hope that this helps you in your business. And the next episode will be back to 3D modeling tutorials. I think it's best to make lemonade out of lemons. We don't need to stay sad about this forever. And in fact, I feel very empowered just in making this video and sharing my story. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time on Ambient 3D Animations.